I never thought I'd be the guy who got cheated on. Growing up, I was the kind of kid who believed in fairy tales, wholesome love stories where the couple lived happily ever after. I met my wife, Rachel, during college. She was everything I thought I wanted: smart, ambitious, and beautiful. We had a solid relationship, or at least I thought we did. We laughed together, shared dreams, and built a life that seemed picture perfect. But over time, I started to notice changes. Rachel became distant, often glued to her phone, her laughter less frequent. I convinced myself it was just the stress of her demanding job as a marketing executive. She'd come home late more often, but I told myself, she's working hard for us. I even took it upon myself to start helping around the house more, cooking dinner and keeping things tidy, hoping to ease her burden. The signs were there, but I buried my head in the sand. One evening, I decided to surprise her with a romantic dinner at home. I bought her favorite wine, cooked a three-course meal, and set the mood with candles and soft music. When she walked through the door, I was ready to sweep her off her feet. Instead, she walked in with a half-hearted smile. "Sorry, I have to take this call," she said, her body already turning away from me. I remember feeling a pit in my stomach, but I brushed it off. The meal went uneaten as she paced around the living room, phone pressed against her ear, whispering in a way that felt secretive. I tried to engage her in conversation, but she was lost in whatever was being said on the other end. That night I went to bed alone, my mind racing with insecurities and doubts. Days turned into weeks. I kept noticing more signs: text messages that she'd quickly hide when I walked in, late-night meetings she'd never disclose. I felt like a detective in my own home, and every new piece of evidence felt like another stab to my heart. I couldn't take it anymore. I needed to confront her, but I was terrified of what I might find. The breaking point came on a Friday night when I came home early from work. I found her in our living room, her phone in hand, and a guilty look on her face. I decided to take a chance. "Rachel, can we talk?" I asked, my voice steady despite the storm brewing inside me. She glanced up, surprise and panic flashing across her features. "Sure, what's up?" I took a deep breath. "I've noticed some things lately that don't sit right with me. Are you seeing someone else?" Her reaction was immediate. She laughed, but it was a bitter laugh, one filled with contempt. "What are you talking about? You're being ridiculous." But there was no sincerity in her voice, just a defensive edge. I pressed her further, and that's when everything exploded. "I saw the messages, Rachel. I'm not stupid. You've been lying to me." She went on the defensive, spewing excuses like they were confetti. "You're overreacting. It's just a coworker. You're making a big deal out of nothing." But the look in her eyes, the way she couldn't even meet my gaze, spoke volumes. A part of me wanted to believe her, but another part of me felt like I was standing in the middle of a live grenade. I remember feeling a wave of anger and betrayal wash over me. How could she do this? How could she lie to me so easily? As I stood there, my heart pounding, I realized I was looking at a stranger. The woman I thought I knew was gone, replaced by someone who could betray me without a second thought. In that moment, the hurt morphed into something else: determination. I knew I couldn't stay in this toxic situation. The emotional impact hit hard. I felt like I was in a whirlwind of disbelief, anger, and sorrow. I'd loved Rachel deeply, and now it felt like my heart had been torn to shreds. I went from questioning my self-worth to feeling like a fool for not seeing the signs sooner. The days turned into a haze of pain. I couldn't eat, sleep, or focus on anything but the image of my wife with someone else. But amid all that anguish, I realized I had a choice to make. I could either let this destroy me or take control of my life. There was no way I was going to let her actions dictate my self-worth. I decided then and there that I would rise from the ashes of this betrayal stronger than ever. As I lay in bed that night, I mapped out a plan in my mind. It was time for me to make a change, not just for Rachel but for myself. I had to rediscover who I was and, more importantly, who I wanted to be. I didn't know it yet, but this was just the beginning of a transformation that would lead to more than just revenge. It would lead to my own self-discovery. I was ready to fight back, not just against Rachel, but against the person I'd become, the husband who overlooked red flags in the name of love. Things were about to get interesting. The weeks that followed my confrontation with Rachel were an emotional roller coaster. After that explosive argument, I moved out of our shared apartment to a small place closer to my job. It felt surreal to pack up my life, but I needed distance from her. I didn't want to dwell on the betrayal, but I couldn't escape it either. Every corner of our apartment was filled with memories, happy moments that now felt tainted. I found myself spending a lot of time alone in my new space, and the silence screamed at me. I'd go to work, put on a brave face, and pretend everything was fine, but inside I was a mess. I threw myself into my job as a graphic designer, hoping to drown out the pain with deadlines and creative projects. But the more I worked, the more I realized I was simply avoiding the real issue. My life felt out of control, and I had to reclaim it. One evening, while sitting on my couch, scrolling through social media, I came across a video of an MMA fighter training in the gym. The intensity and discipline he exhibited caught my eye. There was something raw about it that stirred something deep within me. I was tired of feeling like a victim. I wanted to be strong again, physically, mentally, and emotionally. I made a decision right then and there. I would start training. I signed up for classes at a local MMA gym, and the first day I walked through those doors, I felt a rush of adrenaline. The atmosphere was electric, filled with the sounds of fists hitting bags, trainers shouting encouragement, and fighters sparring. I felt an unfamiliar thrill. This wasn't just about the physical training, it was about reclaiming my identity. My first class was brutal. I could barely keep up with the warm-up exercises, and the coach, a tough-as-nails former fighter named Jake, wasn't going to go easy on anyone. "You want to fight? You have to earn it," he barked, and I felt the heat rising in my cheeks, partly from embarrassment, partly from an ignited determination. I pushed through, feeling muscles I hadn't used in years scream for mercy. Training became my sanctuary. Each session was a cathartic release. I found myself pouring my anger, sadness, and betrayal into every punch, every kick, every grappling drill. I could almost hear Rachel's voice in my head, her dismissive laughter echoing as I trained harder each day. "I'll show you," I thought as I landed a kick squarely on the heavy bag, the impact reverberating through my body. As the weeks turned into months, my body transformed. I lost weight, gained muscle, and built endurance. I was no longer the timid husband who overlooked his wife's infidelity. I was becoming a fighter in every sense of the word. The discipline I learned in the gym began to seep into other parts of my life. I started waking up early, eating healthier, and focusing on my mental well-being. I even started practicing mindfulness, meditating for 10 minutes each morning. Each session was like armor, fortifying my mind against the lingering pain of betrayal. But I wasn't just training for the physical transformation. I was training for the moment of confrontation that was sure to come. I had no idea how Rachel would react when she saw the new me. Would she feel regret, guilt? Would she realize the magnitude of what she had lost? I had so many questions swirling in my mind, but one thing was clear: this was about me now. One night during a particularly intense sparring session, I faced off against a guy named Mark who was a seasoned fighter. He was tough, but I was fueled by adrenaline and newfound confidence. The minute we started, I found my rhythm, dodging and striking with a speed I hadn't thought I possessed. As we fought, I felt the rush of empowerment flowing through me. With each move, I was not just punching Mark. I was punching the memories of my past, the pain of betrayal, and the insecurities that had haunted me for too long. After a hard-fought round, I collapsed onto the mat, breathing heavily but feeling elated. I looked up at Jake, who gave me a nod of approval. "You've come a long way, man. Keep this up and you'll be ready for your first fight soon." The words hit me like a ton of bricks. A fight. I hadn't thought that far ahead, but the idea intrigued me. It wasn't about winning or losing. It was about proving to myself that I could face anything. That night, as I lay in bed, I reflected on how much my life had changed. I could feel the strength surging through my veins, not just physically but mentally as well. I had come to realize that my worth wasn't tied to Rachel or our relationship. I was becoming someone better, someone who could stand tall no matter what life threw at me. But there was still a long way to go. I knew that Rachel would eventually want to talk. She'd see the changes and I'd have to face her again. The thought didn't scare me anymore. It exhilarated me. I was ready to confront her, not just about the affair but about everything that had led us to this point. I was ready to show her that I was stronger, not just in body but in spirit. The journey had only just begun. As the weeks continued to blend into one another, my life took on a new rhythm. The training sessions became the highlight of my days. I embraced the grind, waking up at dawn to hit the gym before work, then returning to the MMA dojo at night. I felt empowered, and my confidence soared with each passing day. I was shedding the remnants of the old me and forging a stronger version. I was ready to confront my past and the woman who had betrayed me. Rachel had tried to reach out a few times since our blow-up. Each text felt like a rope trying to pull me back to a life I'd worked so hard to escape. "Can we talk?" she asked, followed by a string of half-hearted apologies. But I wasn't ready to face her yet, not until I felt completely secure in the changes I had made. I didn't want to slip back into the old patterns. I needed to be firm in my resolve. Then one Sunday afternoon, I was at the gym rapping my hands for a training session when I heard a familiar voice. I looked up to see Rachel standing at the entrance, looking uncertain. My heart raced. It was surreal to see her again after all the time spent apart, still reeling from the memories of our last encounter. She approached hesitantly, her eyes scanning the room before finally locking onto mine. "Hey," she said, her voice wavering. "I didn't think you'd still be here." "Yeah, well, I'm busy," I replied coolly, trying to keep my emotions in check. "What do you want?" I wanted to talk," she said, her tone softer than I remembered. "Can we step outside?" I hesitated but ultimately nodded. I didn't want to make a scene, and honestly I was curious about what she had to say. We walked outside to where the air was crisp and the sun shone brightly, casting a warm glow on everything around us. It felt like a stark contrast to the heaviness in my chest. "Look, I know things have been rough between us," she began, fidgeting with her hands. "I've had some time to think." "Time to think?" I interrupted, my voice sharper than I intended. "You had time to think while you were sleeping with someone else." Her expression shifted, and I saw a flicker of guilt cross her face. "I know I messed up, okay, but I want to explain myself. I've been an idiot. I thought I could handle everything, but I couldn't." She took a deep breath, and I waited for the excuses to pour out, but instead, she continued, "I didn't value what we had until it was almost too late." I felt a swirl of emotions, anger, sadness, and maybe a hint of pity. "You didn't value me. You didn't think I deserved better than that." I know," she exclaimed, frustration creeping into her voice. "It was stupid and I regret it every day, but I want to change. I want to fix this. Can we try again?" The question hung in the air, heavy with implications. I had prepared for this moment but wasn't ready for the vulnerability in her eyes. I could see she was genuinely remorseful, but the wound was still fresh. "And what makes you think I'd want to go back to that?" I asked, trying to keep my composure. "Because I've changed too," she insisted, her voice rising slightly. "I realized what I lost and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to win you back. I love you, love." The word felt hollow coming from her lips. I had loved her deeply, but that love had been shattered by her betrayal. I had already begun to reclaim my life without her, and the thought of going back seemed more daunting than enticing. "I appreciate you coming here, Rachel." "I really do," I replied, my tone softening. "But I'm not the same person I was before. I've been through a lot in the last few months. I've changed too, but I don't think we can go back to how things were." Her eyes widened and tears brimmed. "So what are you saying? Is this it? You're throwing everything away just like that?" I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of every word. "I'm not saying I don't care anymore. I do. But I can't go back to being that guy who ignored all the signs. I deserve better." Rachel took a step back as if my words physically hurt her. "You've changed. You're different," she stammered, her voice softening. "Yeah, I am," I affirmed, my voice steady. "And I'm not going to let you pull me back into a situation where I feel unwanted or unworthy. I've spent too long in that mindset." The silence stretched between us, heavy with tension. I could see the gears turning in her mind, as if she was struggling to understand how everything had shifted. "What do I have to do to prove to you that I can be better?" she finally asked, desperation creeping into her voice. "I don't have the answers, Rachel. You need to figure that out for yourself," I said firmly. Right now, I need time to think. I can't just jump back into something that nearly broke me. I turned to walk away, and in that moment I felt a strange sense of peace wash over me. I wasn't running from her. I was reclaiming my life. I had trained hard to become stronger, both physically and mentally, and I wasn't about to let anyone, not even Rachel, dictate my worth again. As I reached the entrance of the gym, I glanced back one last time. Rachel stood there, tears streaming down her face, and for a moment I felt a twinge of sympathy, but it quickly faded. I had a new journey ahead, and it was time to focus on my own path, one that didn't include her. I walked back inside, where the sounds of the gym enveloped me like a warm embrace. I was ready to fight, not just in the ring, but in life. I had no idea where this journey would ultimately lead, but I was ready to face whatever came next. The past was behind me, and I was ready to embrace the unknown future. After my confrontation with Rachel, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I was no longer the version of myself that had been clinging to the remnants of a fractured relationship. I was becoming someone stronger, someone who refused to be defined by someone else's choices. Each day was like a new chapter, filled with sweat, pain, and the exhilaration of self-discovery. I was preparing for my first MMA fight, and that alone filled me with a resolve I hadn't felt in a long time. Training ramped up as my coach, Jake, pushed me harder. I began to spar against tougher opponents, learning to read their movements and anticipate their strikes. Each hit I took was a reminder of the struggles I'd faced in my personal life, and every victory in the ring became a small triumph over my past. I was no longer just fighting an opponent. I was fighting against my own doubts and insecurities. But even as I focused on my training, Rachel's presence lingered like a ghost. She continued to reach out through texts and calls, each message tugging at my heart. I kept her at arm's length, reminding myself why I had chosen to move on. I didn't want to slip back into the old patterns that had left me feeling inadequate and hurt. One day, mid-training, I received a text from Rachel that sent my heart racing. She wanted to meet again. This time, she claimed she had something important to say. I felt conflicted. Part of me wanted to hear what she had to say, to see if she truly understood the weight of her actions. But another part of me feared that engaging with her would only open old wounds I was trying so hard to heal. In the end, curiosity got the better of me. I agreed to meet her at a cafe near the gym, a neutral ground where I could control the narrative. As I walked in, I spotted her sitting at a corner table, fiddling with her coffee cup. She looked nervous, and I couldn't help but feel a flicker of empathy. I approached her cautiously, taking a seat without any pretense. "Thanks for meeting me," she said, looking up at me with those familiar doe eyes that had once melted my heart. But that facade felt different now, almost distant. "Let's get to the point, Rachel," I replied, trying to keep my tone neutral. "You said you wanted to talk." She took a deep breath, her gaze dropping to the table. "I've been doing a lot of thinking since we last spoke. I've seen a therapist, and I've really been working on myself. I realized how toxic I had become and how selfish I was." I raised an eyebrow, intrigued but skeptical. "Therapy?" I echoed, unsure of what to make of her. "Newfound self-awareness." "Yes," she replied earnestly. "I know it sounds cliché, but I'm serious about changing. I've been reflecting on my actions and how they affected you. I want to take responsibility for my mistakes. I know I can't change the past, but I want to show you that I can be better. I still love you." The words hung heavy in the air. "You love me," I repeated, trying to comprehend the shift in her tone. "You said that back then too, didn't you? Before everything fell apart." "I know, and I don't expect you to forgive me right away, but I'm willing to do the work. I want to prove to you that I can be trusted again." Her sincerity touched something deep inside me, but the fear of being hurt again ran rampant. "Rachel, even if you've changed, it doesn't erase what happened. Trust isn't built overnight. It takes time and consistency." "I understand," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "But I'm committed to making things right. I want to earn your trust back, step by step." I studied her, searching for signs of the woman I once loved versus the woman who had betrayed me. I could see the determination in her eyes, but I also remembered the pain, the sleepless nights, and the feeling of betrayal that had haunted me for so long. "What does that even look like?" I asked, my voice low. It means being honest, being open, and showing you through my actions that I've changed, she said, her voice steadying. I know it can't be fixed overnight, but I'm willing to fight for us. I just need a chance to show you I'm serious. It felt surreal, sitting across from the woman who had once been my everything, now claiming she wanted to fight for me, something I had been doing for myself all this time. I was still processing the shift in our dynamic, but I couldn't deny the flicker of hope igniting in my chest. I need to think about it, I finally muttered, unsure of how to proceed. You've got to understand that I'm in a different place now. I can't just go back to how things were. I know, she replied, nodding. But just hearing you say you'll think about it means a lot. I'll give you space. Just know that I'm here, ready to prove myself. As we wrapped up the conversation, I felt a mixture of emotions. Part of me wanted to reach out and comfort her, to grasp the remnants of what we had once shared. But another part of me cautioned against it, reminding me of the lessons I had learned from the pain she had caused. I left the cafe with my heart heavy, not sure of what to expect in the future. But I knew one thing. I had a fight ahead of me, not just in the ring, but in my personal life. Could I allow Rachel back into my life? Could I trust her again? Only time would tell. And as I stepped back into the gym, I felt the familiar surge of determination. Whatever the outcome, I was ready to face it. I was a fighter now, and I wouldn't back down. After my meeting with Rachel, I found myself in a haze of uncertainty. I had spent so long training and focusing on my transformation that I wasn't sure how to incorporate the possibility of her back into my life. I was torn between the memories of our love and the reality of her betrayal. I continued to train, pouring my energy into every punch and kick, but the emotional turmoil lingered. Jake, my coach, noticed the shift in my focus during training. "You're not all here today," he said after an intense sparring session. We both leaned against the mats, breathing heavily. "What's going on?" I hesitated, unsure if I wanted to divulge my personal struggles, but the weight of my emotions was too much to carry alone. Rachel reached out, I admitted, running a hand through my hair. "She wants to talk about getting back together. She claims she's changed." Jake raised an eyebrow. "And what do you think?" "I don't know," I replied, frustration creeping into my voice. Part of me wants to believe her, but another part of me is terrified of getting hurt again. I've worked so hard to move on. He nodded thoughtfully, his expression serious. "You've done a lot of work on yourself, and it shows. But before you make any decisions, ask yourself this. What do you want? Are you ready to let someone back into your life who betrayed you?" The question hung in the air, heavy with significance. I had been so focused on Rachel's feelings and her need for redemption that I hadn't taken the time to reflect on my own desires. "I want to be happy," I said finally. "I want to be strong, and I want to feel valued. I don't know if I can find that with her again." "Then take your time," Jake advised, his voice steady. "Don't rush into anything. Use this time to focus on what makes you feel strong and fulfilled. Only then can you decide if she deserves a place in your life." His words resonated deep within me, and I spent the following days contemplating my options. I continued training, feeling the endorphins wash over me after each session, but my mind was still tangled in the past. I sought solace in my friends, leaning on their support as I navigated this complicated emotional landscape. One night, after a particularly exhausting training session, I met up with a couple of friends from the gym at a local bar. We laughed and joked over drinks, and for the first time in a long time I felt a sense of normalcy. It was refreshing to be around people who celebrated my transformation without any baggage. I shared my journey with them, and they cheered me on, reminding me of how far I had come. As the night wore on, I received a text from Rachel. "Can we talk again? I need to show you that I'm serious about changing." I felt a pang in my chest as I read her message. The memories of our love came flooding back, but I quickly pushed them aside. I wasn't ready to respond. The next few days were a blur of training and contemplation. I continued to put in the effort at the gym, knowing that my first MMA fight was approaching. The anticipation both excited and terrified me. I wanted to prove to myself and to everyone else that I was stronger than ever. But I also knew that the fight would be a test, not just of my physical abilities, but of my mental resilience. Then came the day of the fight. The gym was buzzing with energy as I walked through the doors, nerves and adrenaline coursing through my veins. My heart pounded as I donned my fight gear, surrounded by my training partners. I could feel the support of my friends and fellow fighters, and it filled me with confidence. As I stepped into the ring, the world around me faded away. The only thing that mattered was the opponent standing across from me. We exchanged a nod of respect, and then it was time. The bell rang and I charged forward. The fight was intense. I felt every strike and grapple as I battled not just against my opponent, but against the lingering doubts in my mind. With each round, I pushed myself harder, drawing on the strength I had cultivated over the past few months. I remembered the pain of my past, and instead of letting it consume me, I channeled it into my movements. In the final round, I found myself exhausted but determined. I threw a powerful combination of punches, landing a solid hit that sent my opponent staggering back. The crowd erupted into cheers, and I felt a surge of exhilaration. I was more than just a fighter. I was a man who had reclaimed his strength. When the fight ended, I raised my arms in victory, feeling a mix of triumph and relief. I had won, but more importantly, I had fought for myself. As I walked out of the ring, I was met with applause and congratulations from my friends and teammates. I felt a rush of pride in my achievements, and in that moment, I knew I had made significant strides towards healing. But that night, as I celebrated with my friends, Rachel's text lingered in my thoughts. I knew I had to confront my feelings about her once and for all. The fight had shown me that I was capable of standing tall, not just in the ring but in my life. I had proven to myself that I didn't need to settle for less than I deserved. When I finally made the decision to reach out to Rachel, I felt a mix of apprehension and resolve. I needed to address the wounds of our past and clarify what I wanted moving forward. I texted her, asking to meet one last time, determined to find closure and clarity. As we arranged to meet, I steeled myself for what was to come. It was time to confront the past and figure out if there was a future worth exploring, or if it was time to truly let go. I had fought for my strength, and now I was ready to fight for my heart, whatever that would mean. The day of my final meeting with Rachel arrived, and I felt a mixture of apprehension and determination. As I prepared to meet her, I reflected on how far I had come. I had fought in the ring and emerged victorious, but the real battle was still ahead. I needed to confront my feelings, set boundaries, and determine if there was a path forward with Rachel, or if it was time to close that chapter of my life for good. We chose a park for our meeting, a neutral ground where we could talk without the distractions of our old life together. The sun was shining, and the air was crisp, but my heart felt heavy as I approached the bench where she was waiting. Rachel looked up, her expression a mixture of hope and anxiety. "Hey," she said softly, her eyes searching mine for any sign of where I stood. "Hey," I replied, taking a seat beside her. There was a moment of silence, as we both gathered our thoughts, the weight of our past hanging between us. "I've been thinking a lot about everything," Rachel began, her voice trembling slightly. "About us, about what happened. I know I hurt you deeply, and I'm so sorry for that. I just want you to know that I'm fully committed to changing." I took a deep breath, feeling the familiar mix of anger and sadness bubbling up inside me. "Rachel, this isn't just about saying you're sorry. It's about trust. You broke my trust in a way that I'm still trying to understand." She nodded, her expression serious. "I know. I've been working really hard to reflect on my actions. I've done a lot of soul searching, and I realize how selfish I was. I took you for granted, and I can't change that, but I want to show you that I'm different now." "It's not just about wanting to change," I explained, feeling the anger rise in my voice. "You had a choice, and you made the wrong one. You chose someone else over me. I can't just forget that. I know it's difficult for you to see me differently," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "But I need you to understand that I'm not the same person I was. I want to rebuild what we had, but I can't do it alone. I need you to give me a chance." I could see the sincerity in her eyes, but I also saw the remnants of the woman who had hurt me. I had spent months training to build my strength, both physically and mentally, and I wasn't about to let my progress be dismantled by the past. Rachel, I appreciate that you're trying to change, but I need to think about what I want too. What's best for me? What about us? She pressed, her voice trembling. Don't you want to try to rebuild? I don't know if we can, I confessed, the sadness washing over me. You've hurt me deeply, and it's going to take more than just words to fix this. I've discovered a lot about myself during our time apart, and I've realized that I'm stronger than I ever gave myself credit for. She looked down, tears welling in her eyes. I never wanted to hurt you. I was just lost and confused. You were my anchor, and I let someone else pull me away. I understand that you were struggling, but I can't be the one to fix you, I replied, my voice steadier now. I have to look out for myself first. I need to be with someone who respects me, someone who values our relationship and won't jeopardize it. I can't risk being hurt like that again. Rachel wiped away a tear and took a deep breath. So this is it. You're really walking away. I hesitated for a moment, my heart aching at the thought of leaving behind the good times we'd shared, the laughter, the love. But the betrayal had overshadowed it all. I think it's what's best for both of us. I need to continue moving forward, and I can't do that if I'm always looking over my shoulder. She nodded slowly, her face a mixture of defeat and acceptance. I understand. I just wish things could have been different. Me too, I said, feeling the weight of our shared history. I'll always care about you, but I can't go back to how things were. I need to forge my own path now. We sat in silence for a moment, the reality of our situation settling in. I felt a strange sense of closure wash over me. I had stood my ground, communicated my feelings, and made the choice that was right for me. It wasn't easy, but I knew it was necessary. As we parted ways, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I had fought hard for my personal growth and had emerged stronger, both physically and emotionally. I was ready to embrace whatever life had in store for me, whether it was new friendships, opportunities, or even love. In the following weeks, I immersed myself in my training, focusing on my goals and continuing to build upon the foundation I had created. I began to explore new activities, surrounding myself with supportive friends and finding joy in the present moment. I realized that my journey was far from over. It was just beginning. Through everything I had experienced, I had learned some valuable lessons about love, trust, and self-worth. I had discovered that my strength came not just from my physical abilities, but from my ability to stand up for myself and make choices that aligned with my values. As I stepped into the gym one day, ready for my next training session, I felt a sense of empowerment. I was no longer defined by my past or anyone else's choices. I was a fighter, not just in the ring but in life, and I was ready to embrace the future with open arms.